Welcome to Neural Nexus podcast, where we explore the hottest topics shaping the world. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're starting with something pretty chilling, a real historical mystery. Picture this. November, sometime in the 1880s. A man is buried, quietly. No name, no ceremony, not even a cross.
Just gone.
Exactly. Just a few figures in heavy coats lowering a plain coffin in some forgotten corner of St. Petersburg. He just vanished. But the whispers, they hung around. An old chambermaid apparently swore he'd been in the Empress's chambers, that he'd heard her very last commands before she slept.
Wow. Straight into the deep end. Who was he, and why the total erasure?
That's the hook, isn't it? It leads us straight to the woman at the center of it all, Catherine the Great, Empress of all Russia.
A figure absolutely legendary, and, already surrounded by myths while she was alive. People admired her intellect, calling her a builder of temples of science.
But others condemned her, right? Accused her of being worse than a brothel owner. It's such a stark contrast.
It really is. But the one thing everyone seemed to agree on, the thing our sources really hammer home, is her incredible ability to command people, the state, the army, and maybe especially men.
Yeah, the command seems key. Like you said, colonels leaving her chambers as generals, cadets suddenly becoming counts, all decided behind closed doors.
And that mystery man, the one who vanished, he sort of sets the stage for what we're doing today. We're pulling back the curtain on Catherine's intimate life.
Right.
Because our sources, and we've got quite a stack from tricky archival fragments to more revealing memoirs, they suggest this wasn't just personal, it was, well, a tool, a calculated, sometimes pretty brutal instrument of her power.
So our mission here is to connect those dots for you, to really unpack what this meant for her rule, her legacy. It's a fascinating and frankly kind of dangerous world we're stepping into.
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
Okay, so if her intimate life was this instrument of power, how did that work day to day? How was her bedroom this secret cabinet deciding fates?
Well, that's exactly it. It wasn't just a bedroom. It was her most secret, maybe most powerful cabinet. Think about the impact a colonel walks out a general. That's not just favoritism. That's a direct shift in the power structure decided in, extreme privacy.
So it's baked into her authority somehow.
Completely, a core part of it. And what's really disturbing is the pattern. Biographers guess she had, maybe a dozen favorites? Some say several dozen. But the point is, quite a few just disappear from the records after maybe one meeting at Tsarskoye Selo.
Disappear? Like, what actually happened to them?
Well, the official stories are convenient. Some retired to the countryside for their health. Others died in, quote, strange circumstances.
Oh, like what?
Falling off a horse, a sudden fever, things that sound plausible but were apparently never looked into. No investigations. And their letters burned. Portraits, faces literally painted over. One source actually says it was like history was cleaned manually.
Painted over. That's
Yeah.
chilling. That goes way beyond just being discreet.
Oh, absolutely. It's about total control. Control over their lives, their deaths, and even their memory. She could make someone a non-person. That's real power.
And this wasn't just court gossip, right? Didn't someone actually notice this pattern officially or try to?
Yes, exactly. Our sources mention a Count Kozel Poklevsky. He was an archivist back in the 1830s, so decades after Catherine. He started noticing these gaps, these disappearances.
What did he find?
He found bits of letters, fragments really, with names that didn't match any known associates. Hints about health checks, temporary rooms in a sort of side wing, loads of secrecy, all marked personally for Her Majesty.
Okay, so proof exists, or it
Yeah.
existed. What happened to his findings?
That's the kicker. Those documents, they vanished too, after Poklevsky himself died. All that's left are the rumors he apparently started.
Wow, the secrecy was that airtight, even years later.
Incredible, isn't it? But the whispers continued among servants. Stories about, nighttime viewings of young officers, even talk of a secret passage in the Winter Palace leading to this place called the White Gallery. Yeah, apparently a narrow corridor where the hopefuls would just wait to be chosen for the night.
God, the tension. And you mentioned doctors earlier. They were involved in this.
Sources suggest they were examining these men, and not just for, diseases, but also checking their moral state, whatever that means. The silence around it all, lasting for so long after her death, just confirms how deeply tied it was to her power. Catherine got the body's significance, didn't she? Hers and theirs. In that time, love often meant duty, and she used intimacy like a currency of promises, rewards, maybe even punishment.
So no one felt safe. You could be a duke one morning and literally nothing the next.
Precisely. It sounds incredibly strategic, almost cold.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like spontaneous attraction at all. Was it really this well-oiled machine the sources talk about? Or was there any personal feeling involved?
That's a great question. And the sources. They lean heavily towards the machine. It wasn't whim, it was a procedure. A proper court procedure with stages, hidden observers, palace intrigue.
So stripping away any idea of romance.
Pretty much. It shows her calculating side, doesn't it? Even the most personal choices were part of this system. It often started subtly, not in the bedroom. Maybe Catherine drops a comment at tea or the theater about a charming officer she noticed, or a young man with elegant handwriting.
Just a casual remark.
Seemingly casual, but for her inner circle, that was the signal. Go time.
So what was step one?
A formal introduction, maybe at a ball, a parade, a private concert, and the man would just be assessed in silence.
Assessed for what?
Everything. Clothes, posture, his skin, hair, apparently even body odor. How he answered questions, not just what he said, but how.
Who was doing the assessing?
Key women in her circle, people she trusted implicitly, like Countess Bruce or Madame Protasova, who was actually Grigory Orlov's sister, so she knew Catherine's tastes well. They did this silent casting, then reported back, often to Potemkin.
So it's formalized, even the initial glance. It's not just Catherine spotting someone.
Exactly. It's managed, filtered, subordinated to the system, designed to maintain total discretion and serve her needs.
And then the sources mention this secret medical exam. Oh, that sounds pretty intense.
It does, yeah. No official papers survive, obviously. But the implication is strong. Court doctors checked them out thoroughly. Diseases, yes, infectious, chronic ones, but also general health appearance and the notes they supposedly left. Pretty chilling. Things like fully fit, or maybe nervous excitability not recommended due to weak temperament.
Wow. So personality checks, too.
Seems like it. Ensuring they were physically suitable, but also maybe emotionally stable enough for whatever the role demanded. And those notes, burned immediately after reading. Often just initials on them. Clinical.
Okay, so they passed the glance test, they passed the medical. What then? Straight to the Empress.
Not usually. Often there was this period of just waiting in silence. They might get put up in guest rooms, given horses, servants, but no explanation.
That must have been nerve-wracking.
Totally. Sources say many just couldn't take it and left. Some apparently went mad, and anyone who tried to force the issue, barge in. Yeah, that ended badly. Unenviable is the word used.
And if they were finally invited?
No set schedule, no clear commands. One evening could change everything. Suddenly you're an ambassador, or maybe you're shipped off to manage a factory in the Urals. Your whole future hanging on that single encounter.
It's mentioned Catherine often started with, do you like books? It seems like a simple question.
Right. Almost gentle. But the sources say the answer itself didn't matter.
So what did matter?
How he answered. His manner, his confidence, his poise under scrutiny. And the fear, it was palpable. These encounters were never discussed afterward.
Ever.
There's this one story about Platon Zubov. He apparently hinted to a friend that Catherine liked. No physical contact for the first couple of weeks. That friend vanished 2 weeks later, just gone.
Good grief. Loose lips really did sink ships. Or people.
Exactly. It wasn't just about gossip. It was about maintaining absolute control over the narrative, over her image.
So with all this process, what was she actually looking for? You said it wasn't a physical type.
No, apparently not. She seemed to seek variety. Something alive, fresh, unlike others. Different ages, backgrounds, personalities. Tenderness in one, maybe roughness in another. Musical skill. It sounds less like passion and more like...
intellectual curiosity.
Yeah, maybe something like that. Like she was studying human nature through them, keeping herself stimulated. The court even made bets on how long the new favorite would last.
A morbid game.
And Catherine sometimes played along. Reportedly told Potemkin once, Grigory Alexandrovich, don't worry, I'm not marrying.
Huh. Dark humor indeed. But what if they failed? What if they got to the chamber and just couldn't handle it? Fainted or something?
It happened. Some fainted, some apparently started reciting poetry, some just ran. They weren't usually punished, not in a physical way, but they were erased.
Raised again.
Yeah. Stripped of any temporary perks they'd gotten, maybe allowed to keep a ring or a watch, like a token that said, okay, you can leave alive, now disappear. Their value was purely conditional. Lose favor, become irrelevant, instantly.
Let's talk about some of these men specifically. Grigory Orlov seems like the starting point, the template, almost.
Yeah.
But also a warning.
Definitely. Orlov was there from the start. Young, charismatic, crucial in her coup, maybe even ordered Peter III's murder, though that's debated. He got everything.
Everything like...
Huge estates, massive pension, count title, plus this really unique right not to kneel before her. He could look her in the eye. His brothers got boosts, too. Senators, commanders, he was the first, and he got the jackpot.
But that much power in one favorite sounds risky.
It was. He became too powerful politically, almost a rival. So Catherine started to pull back, avoided him. Eventually, she let Potemkin push him aside, sent him abroad for treatment.
Treatment. There's that word again.
Exactly. He died a few years later, quietly, sadly, pretty much in isolation. His story was a huge lesson for her.
How so?
After Orlov, the rewards for favorites were strictly dosed. Generous, sure, but never again that kind of unchecked power or political clout. She learned the danger of letting a favorite become too independent.
Okay, then there's Alexander Lanskoy. The sources call him one of her most loved. His story feels different, more tragic.
It does. Lanskoy rose fast general major in just 3 years, got his own palace. She even called him Mama, affectionately. But his death, very sudden.
What happened?
Officially, heart disease. Unofficially, found with his face contorted in fear. Years later, a valet supposedly revealed Lanskoy had asked to resign just days before, said he was tired of being nobody.
Wow. Tired of being nobody, even while being the Empress's favorite.
It says everything about the performance, doesn't it? The constant pressure. Even being loved meant your identity was swallowed by the role. And after he died, his name was never spoken again. Erased.
It's just incredible how many met these mysterious ends, or just vanished. Did the sources suggest she was actively orchestrating these ends? Or was it just the danger zone around power?
It's usually framed more as the inherent danger, you know? Like Stanislaw Poniatowski tried wooing her with poems. She seemed impressed, but poof, off he goes as ambassador to Poland. Reward, exile. Hard to say, but it served her political purpose.
Right. Redirected his ambitions.
Exactly. Or Nikolai Cheglakov, simple guardsman. Suddenly governor general. Murdered 2 years later. Rumor was he knew too much about army finances or dealings. His promotion put him in the line of fire.
And Rimsky-Korsakov. He apparently had a lot of trust, but fell fast.
Yeah, his mistake was getting caught with a lady-in-waiting in Catherine's own chambers.
Ouch!
Big ouch. Catherine apparently just walked out silently, then banished him. Instantly. No return possible. The sources say she didn't forgive even a hint of infidelity or maybe just the appearance of disloyalty. It undermined the whole performance.
And then there's that story about Pavel Golovin, the musician. That one sounds particularly disturbing psychologically.
It really does. Came from a musical family, spent weeks at court, and then just lost himself. Stopped playing music, avoided everyone, apparently only spoke using Catherine's own phrases. Yeah. After she dismissed him, he lived totally secluded for 7 years, talking to himself like he was still having conversations with her. It shows the sheer mental toll, doesn't it? How living in that intense orbit could just consume someone's personality.
The psychological damage must have been immense for some. So falling out of favor, the ultimate price wasn't always death, but this silence.
Complete, eternal silence. That was the ultimate price. Catherine left no contracts, but the deal was understood. One wrong step, one violation of the unspoken rules, and you become non-existent.
Not a metaphor.
Not at all. A brutal reality. Some got pensions, titles, sent away quietly, but others got nothing. Their names just became initials in some old lady-in-waiting's notebook. Living out their lives somewhere, silent forever. Total erasure from the record. Her power extended even to defining who existed in history.
And Valerian Zubov enters the picture late in her life. He rose fast too, didn't he?
He did. Catherine spotted him at dinner, seemingly by chance. Quiet guy, polite. Within 2 months, his brother was basically running foreign policy.
So the system still worked, even then?
Oh yeah, that's apparently where the saying came from. The path to the throne lies through a room in the small wing. Access, power, influence, it was always about that. And the payment was always looming. Catherine didn't tolerate weakness, no tears.
Any examples?
There was a poet favorite who wrote verses about his heartbreak after being dismissed. He was exiled, his books burned, name erased. She demanded control even over their emotions, their stories about her.
Okay, but if all these relationships were so transactional, so controlled, so dangerous, what on earth was Grigory Potemkin? He seems to break the mold completely.
He absolutely does. Potemkin is, hard to pin down, fiery, dangerous, unpredictable. Sources say Catherine was drawn to him like he was the last enemy whom it was impossible to defeat, but possible to subdue.
Wow, That's intense.
Their relationship was way more than an affair. It was this incredibly complex passion, yes, but also hate, gratitude, fear. He matched her intellectually, matched her will. He wasn't just a favorite, he was a partner.
And the rumor about them being secretly married, is there anything to that?
Well, no documents prove it, but hints in her letters to him are strong. Things like, I am your wife, but not publicly. Some historians think this deep, unspoken bond made all her other relationships seem like games by comparison. Potemkin was the real deal, the only one she shared something with beyond the usual transactions.
He didn't even live with her all the time, right? But his power was huge.
No, he often lived apart for weeks. Yet his influence was immense, unprecedented, making decisions, appointments, access to everything, finance, diplomacy, the army. She called him my eagle. He called her mama. The boundaries just weren't there for them. It was about power and strategy, more than just physical presence.
I remember reading about their massive public fights. Him throwing things, showing up drunk, and she just took it. Why him? Anyone else would have been erased instantly.
That's the million-ruble question, isn't it? The court knew. They understood. He held not just power, but the Empress's soul. He knew too much.
Her secret.
Everything. Weaknesses, fears, private moments, even, apparently, knowing that one favorite was killed not out of jealousy, but because he stumbled onto sensitive political secrets. Potemkin was the co-author of her reign. He wasn't just a lover, he was her strategic partner, her confidant, the one person who truly understood the weight of her power.
So losing him must have been devastating. How did she handle his death?
Publicly, stoic, iron will on display. She resumed duties immediately, but behind the scenes. Servants said she didn't sleep for 3 nights straight. Old letters were burned in her bedroom fireplace, dark tablecloths appeared everywhere, and his portrait, one she supposedly couldn't stand looking at when he was alive, suddenly appeared on her desk.
A sign of.
Maybe that with him gone, something in her died too. Her ability to truly be herself, perhaps. After Potemkin, there were other men, sure. Smiles, knights. But the sources say no trust. Not like with him. She wore a ruby ring he gave her until her own death. A final secret link.
So let's circle back to Valerian Zubov, the last one.
Whoa.
Much younger. What was that relationship about coming after Potemkin late in her life?
Yeah, nearly 40 years younger. Sources describe him as having this innocent, almost childlike gaze that reminded her of Lanskoy, the one who died so tragically. She was over 60 by then. It seems she wasn't really looking for passion anymore.
But what then?
Maybe proof that she was still needed? A shield against loneliness, against feeling irrelevant as she aged? Zubov became her last excuse not to be lonely. She called him her dear child. He read to her, played chess, sang.
So a very different dynamic. Comfort, maybe?
It seems like it, a different kind of intimacy. She actually listened to him, let him contradict her sometimes, which was incredibly rare in her court. People said she genuinely laughed at his stories. Her valet called it the laugh of a woman who remembers she lived.
That's quite poignant.
It is. But the sources also hint at an emptiness behind it. She was seeking proof of her own vitality, maybe, rather than just another body. It feels less about power or even that intense intellectual spark she had with Potemkin, and more about comfort, companionship against the isolation of absolute rule in her final years.
And he was there at the very end.
He was a constant, quiet presence in her last year. He apparently sensed her decline, saw her hand tremble, saw her gaze sort of look through him sometimes. The night she died, she was writing late by candlelight. Those papers were never found, just an ink smudge left on the table.
And Zubov.
He was the first one in the room the next morning. Didn't cry, apparently. Just walked over and took her old, dark scarf from her armchair. A silent goodbye.
What happened to him afterwards? Did he vanish too?
Not entirely. He got wealth, titles. His brother actually stepped into Potemkin's powerful role, but Valerian himself, he just faded from public view. Lived quietly in a village. Locals would see him sitting by the window, that black scarf on his knees.
Still holding on to it.
Yeah. An old man who knew him is quoted saying, "This was a man whose voice was taken, but not his memory."
A powerful way to put it, right? Silenced by the weight of it all, but forever marked by it.
So, wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway about Catherine? Her intimate life clearly wasn't just about pleasure or scandal. No, absolutely not. Our deep dive shows it was this complex, controlled, often ruthless system. Part power consolidation, part maybe a defense against the profound loneliness of her position. She chose men for what they offered the empire, yes, but also for what they offered her psyche. A buffer against time, proof she still mattered. Like the sources say, she loved as she commanded and commanded as she loved. Her personal life was an extension of her rule.
It's an incredible picture of her. But even with all her control, all her attempts to manage the narrative, to erase things, so much remains hidden, doesn't it?
It does. The real truth of her inner life, her vulnerabilities, her fears, maybe her real affections, they aren't in the official histories. They're in the gaps, the erasures, the whispers. Think about that cabinet of silence room or the secret room where she kept notes, letters, burned after her death, supposedly.
Except for that one sentence.
Exactly. That single surviving fragment found hidden. You were what remained of the real me. Who was you? Potemkin, Lanskoy. Someone else entirely erased, we don't know. And her very last words whispered to a servant, "Don't extinguish the light, I still need it."
Wow.
So here's the thought to leave you with. This incredibly powerful woman shaped an empire with sheer will, yet maybe her deepest meaning, her truest self, wasn't in the power, but reflected in these very relationships she controlled so tightly and often chose to erase. What does that tell us about the human soul, Even someone like Catherine the Great. How much remains ultimately private, hidden, even on the biggest stage imaginable?